Imagine stepping into a world where city streets curve into perfect circles. A place that seems more like a vision from a sci-fi novel than a suburb. Welcome to Brøndby Garden City in Denmark. A city that defies conventional urban design with its 24 circles, each home to a community living in a garden. This isn't just a city, it's a glimpse of a 1960s utopian dream crafted in the suburbs of Copenhagen. It's easy to find photos online showing this circular city from above, but to truly learn more about this place, I went there to see what it looks like from the ground. Join me as I uncover what's behind this extraordinary design and explore what makes Brøndby Garden City like no other place on Earth. This is Garden City in Brøndby, Denmark, and there is no place like it. It sits on the outskirts of Copenhagen, and it is one of the most fascinating and unique living areas in the world. It was built in 1964 and designed by landscape architect Erik Minget as a utopian example of suburban living. It was designed so that residents could both live in a private home while also feeling like a part of a community. This circular design places a huge emphasis on this sense of community, with residents not only in close proximity, but sharing many elements of life. When I first entered, there were a few things that I initially noticed. First, the houses are very close together, and the streets are very narrow. There's also limited parking within the circles. There are guest parking areas. It's simply in the grass right outside of the circle. Another first impression that I had is that these streets, which are very narrow, make it feel like a true community, and not as if the circles are divided by the street. I was also surprised by the sheer amount of shared space. For example, each circle has between 12 and 24 houses, but they share only one driveway. When you drive into one of the circles and reach the center, you'll see that there are no car garages or individual driveways. Instead, there is a ring of gravel where residents can park their cars. This shared driveway is the first of many examples of shared space in Garden City. Having a shared central driveway creates a chance for neighbors to meet and chat as they walk out of their house to get to their cars. Another defining feature of Garden City is, of course, the garden. When you look at it from above, you can see that every circle is located in a large grass field, and the individual homes have only a very small yard. The Garden City design essentially inverts the yard, so instead of everyone having their own large private yard, that land that would be the large yard is instead placed outside the circles and joined together into one giant yard that everyone can share. And I didn't realize the true size of this grassy area until I visited. As you can see in my video shots, it was sort of difficult to fit the entire grassy area between two of these circles into just one video frame. This garden area is cool and all, but why was the city actually designed as a bunch of circles with shared garden-style yards? Well, part of it has to do with that sense of community, which was the root of this design. Following World War II, as an influx of people moved to suburbs, it created a new style of spaced-out living. This style of spaced-out living, known as suburbs, could get lonely, and didn't do much to foster a true sense of community. The design of Garden City was a reflection of that loneliness, and the design aimed to create a place where you could both live in a private suburban home and a mini community at the same time. The large grassy area that flows between the circles didn't just serve as a yard and recreation space, but also as a way for people from different circles to meet each other. The streets were designed to minimize traffic, making the area safe for pedestrians and cyclists, and farther enhancing the community's quality of life. All of this is a major difference from a traditional suburban design, and this difference in design creates many more opportunities for people to meet each other within the community. To better explain this, I'm going to use a simplified example. Let's say you live in a traditional grid-style suburb on 5th Street. When you want to go outside, you simply go to your private yard. You have met some of the other people on 5th Street, but you don't know anyone on 2nd Street because there isn't much opportunity for you to meet them. Now let's say you live in Garden City. Instead of 5th Street, you live in Circle 5. And because you share a driveway with all of your neighbors, you get to know all of the people who live in your circle. And now that your yard is also shared, you leave your circle and you cross paths with people from a bunch of other circles. I know it's simplified, but this was the way that the design of Garden City was intended to work. However, despite its many benefits, Brøndby Garden City is not without its challenges, especially when we talk about scalability and affordability. This utopian dream requires a large amount of land, which is becoming scarcer and pricier in the Copenhagen area. The Garden City's popularity has not only spiked property values, but also created a debate on what it means to have sustainable urban living. Brøndby's commitment to sustainability echoes the 1960s climate movement, proving that urban developments can both bolster environmental sustainability and elevate living standards. But back in 1964, when Brøndby Garden City emerged on the outskirts of Copenhagen, it was envisioned as a sustainable haven. But fast forward to today, the city faces a housing shortage, which puts the Garden City's low-density design under scrutiny. With this, the question arises. Despite Garden City being designed as a sustainable place, is sprawling farther into the countryside really ever sustainable? However, with that being said, even if today it's not as sustainable as it was once perceived, it still does stand as a great lesson in integrating green spaces and community-centric elements into our cities. As we continue to build our cities, we can take the principles seen in Garden City and incorporate them into new urban designs. It's certainly possible to apply the same green space and community elements that are seen in Garden City into denser developments. So, who is this style of living truly designed for? Well, it was intended to be used as a sort of weekend getaway from the city. Garden City wasn't actually intended to be occupied by its residents 100% of the time. And if you want to live here, there are some rules. In order to buy one of these homes, there's a rule that says you must have your permanent residence within 20 kilometers of Garden City. Also, although you can buy the house, you can't actually buy the land. Instead, you rent the land. So it's essentially a house that you own on land that you're renting. Brøndby Garden City certainly pushed beyond its time. It was proof that we could build spaces that were both private and public, and showed how designing better shared space could create stronger communities.